On this edition of the Center of It All, we'll meet up with Penn State wrestling legend and UFC star Phil Davis at the Central PA Health Expo. Sarah Lagerman sits down with a local blues musician, and she has the haunted history of Center County. These stories and more coming up next on the Center of It All. Welcome to the Center of It All. UFC fighter Phil Davis was back in the area for the Central PA Health and Fitness Expo, and our Sarah Lagerman catches up with the former Nittany Lion great.
Please welcome Mr. Wonderful, Phil Davis!
Phil Davis was a four-time NCAA Division I All-American wrestler at Penn State and the NCAA Division I champion at 197 pounds in 2008. He is currently a light heavyweight fighter in the UFC with a 12-2 record. I caught up with Mr. Wonderful at the Central Pennsylvania Health and Fitness Expo, where he was holding a mixed martial arts seminar with Central PA MMA out of State College. Although Phil trains on the West Coast, he says PA will always feel like home.
I come back as often as I can. Work keeps me busy training in San Diego, but I still feel like home is in Pennsylvania, and I'm just away working, so I come back as often as I can.
During his years wrestling at Penn State, Phil never dreamed he would be a professional mixed martial artist.
No, I thought I'd be somewhere around the world traveling and wrestling, but you know, I still enjoy watching wrestling and keeping up on my teammates here.
Inside the UFC octagon, he is known as Mr. Wonderful.
I got the name Mr. Wonderful from a cat that I had here while I was at Penn State. His name was Mr. Wonderful, and long story short, my friends thought it'd be a good name for me to carry on, keep the wonderful name alive as I started fighting. So.
On October 25th, Phil heads down to Brazil for UFC 179 to take on fellow light heavyweight Glover Teixeira.
My training camp is going well, and I'm excited to head down to Brazil and get a big win down there.
Be sure to check out Phil at UFC 179 on pay-per-view. And if you're interested in mixed martial arts, visit cpamma.com.
It's always great to see Phil back home. You know, running is a great way to get in shape, and the Nittany Valley Running Club is here to help runners reach their full potential.
I don't know about you, but one of my favorite ways to stay in shape is going on a long run. And the Nittany Valley Running Club is your source for everything running in central Pennsylvania. With almost 300 members, the Nittany Valley Running Club is well established in the community. I met up with Communications Director Marty Mazer, who has been running for most of his life.
Well, the club was started, I think, around 40 years ago by Harry Groves, who was the coaching Hall of Fame coach at Penn State up until the mid-2000s, and a group of other runners associated with Penn State and some of the athletes. At that time, we also had a really vibrant local running community, and we still do, and they wanted to just get some more people involved in the sport and start some races and things like that.
One of the coolest aspects to being a member of the NVRC is the selection of group runs going on in the region. The friendly atmosphere and competition is sure to keep you running.
Well, because we have a pretty socially friendly club, I think it encourages people to keep coming back.
Runners of all ages and experience levels are welcome to the club.
We have a pretty good bunch of beginners with the club, and then we also have some, I guess you might say, nationally competitive age group runners within our club too.
For those more competitive runners, the club promotes tons of local races happening all the time, as well as offering their own races.
We have a big race coming up that's called the Tussey Mountain Back. It's a 50-mile relay race, but it also has an ultra marathon associated with it. And that race attracts people from all over the country and some from international to compete. From time to time, it's been the National Road Racing 50-Mile Ultra Marathon Championship.
Whether you're getting in shape or staying in shape, the Nittany Valley Running Club is a great organization to build friendships as well as thigh muscles. For the Center of It All, I'm Sarah Lagerman.
If you're a local runner, this is definitely the club for you. As you can tell, I have not been doing a whole lot of running lately. Coming up next, we'll highlight a blues artist from Bellefonte. Welcome back to the center of it all. Central PA has a number of talented musicians, and local blues artist John Thompson stopped by our studio to talk about his music.
John JT Thompson is a local blues artist that plays all over central Pennsylvania in his solo project known as JT Blues.
I'm a piano player and I really like blues music, so most everything I do is rooted in the blues, but I do play a lot of different styles depending on, you know, what the event is or what the gig might be. So.
He also collaborates with other local artists and plays shows each weekend in State College and the surrounding areas.
The band here I've been in the longest is the AAA Blues Band, which I joined in 2003. We play at Zeno's in downtown State College every Friday night, and the band's been there since 1991, so it's sort of an institution in town. The next band I got into was a band called Maxwell Straight, and that's fronted by Molly Countermine. Ted McCloskey is the guitar player. They're all pretty well known in the area too, so it's kind of great to play with them. We play at the First every Thursday night. We're sort of a classic rock band, but we do a lot of current music too. We're rooted in the sort of the Rolling Stones and the Beatles style of music. And it's playing mostly for students, so it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of energy in there on Thursday nights.
A former Penn State student, Thompson traveled down south to pursue his love of music.
I was born in Bellefonte, raised up here, and I first played music around here. Went to Penn State as a music student for several years, but I got an offer to go out on the road and travel, which I just really wanted to do. So then I got an offer to go play down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and that sounded good. So I went down there and I ended up living in Louisiana for 6 years, and I played a lot of blues, played a lot of all different styles of music, country, played Cajun music, played rock music, and got a real taste of all those different styles being down there, and played a lot of bands. I traveled a lot too.
John has released 2 studio albums, his latest titled This Way, That Way. But since his childhood, he knew he wanted to pursue music professionally.
I started taking piano lessons when I was about 10 years old, and my mother played piano, and she had me and my sister take lessons, and somehow once I started doing that, I just knew that's what I wanted to do. We watched Johnny Carson, and Doc Severinsen was the band leader, and he played trumpet, and just watching him up on the stage there and the things he did, I just thought that's what I wanted to be. You know, so from that early age, when I was 10, 11, 12, 13, I don't know, I got the bug that way, and my dad tried to convince me I should go into business or something like that, but I don't know, the music was just, had a hold on me then, and I knew I wasn't going to let go of it. If the cloud bursts, thunder in your ear, you shout, but no one seems to hear. If the band you're in starts playing different tunes, I'll see you on the dark side of the moon. I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do, you know. Sort of found my calling years ago. I realized that, and I love to try and make people happy. That's one thing music is for. It touches us on an emotional level so many ways. So you try and move people through it. There's sadness in music and sorrow and things, but that, like the blues, you talk about the blues, it can be bad. The blues brings you down, makes you feel bad, but the music in the blues brings you up. You know, tries to get you out of the depths of those sorrows, makes you recognize where you are, but still it keeps you going. So that's what I'm here to try and keep people going.
at Governor's Pub every Thursday night. And for a full list of his upcoming performances, log on to jtblues.com.
It's awesome to have so many talented musicians in the area. And when we come back, Mel's getting you in the island spirit with some Jamaican curry, man. Welcome back to the center of it all. Mel is spicing up your cool autumn days with her Jamaican curry shrimp.
It's sweater weather here in Happy Valley. The leaves are falling, and by the time everybody gets home from work, the sun is setting. We're doing a lot more cooking indoors these days. Today, I'm making a meal that's going to bring the bold, fresh flavors of summer onto my family's dinner table during the brisk fall and the cold winter. A hot and hearty Jamaican shrimp curry with steamed jasmine rice. Let's get started. I always start my rice first, and I like to use my electric rice steamer because it does all the work while I prep my ingredients. I already have 3 cups of rice in here. I'm adding a 4th, and I'm using jasmine rice. It's a long-grained, almost perfumey, beautifully flavored rice. And now I'm going to add 4 cups of water, and it's not 4 standard cups of water. When you're using a rice cooker, it's important to realize that the same cup you measure the rice in is the same cup you measure the water in. So I'm going to add 1, 2, 4. That's no coincidence. I did that on purpose. I'm going to give my rice a brief stir, close the lid, turn my steamer on, and in about 20 minutes, the rice is going to be perfectly cooked. It's important to know that Jamaican curry is different than Indian curry. Jamaican curry contains allspice. Indian curry does not. Indian curry contains mace and cardamom. Jamaican curry does not. This makes Jamaican curry really fragrant, and it makes Indian curry really earthy. If you're a lover of fragrant spice, you are going to love Jamaican style curry powder. And I've got 3 tablespoons of it in this little bowl with a teaspoon of ginger, a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of sea salt, and a pinch of habanero pepper. In Jamaica, they would typically use a Scotch bonnet pepper, which is really hot. But of course, here in Pennsylvania, I don't have the benefit of a fresh Scotch bonnet. So the citrusy flavor of the really hot habanero is a great substitution. I'm just going to stir all of these together in the bowl. Doesn't have to be completely stirred, but a nice little rough stir. And now it's time to mix all of our curry together. Stirring the curry together couldn't be easier. And you can actually prep all of your ingredients the night before as long as you keep them separately and don't mix them together. And I'll tell you why at the end. I've got a big green bell pepper that I've cut into little strips. That's 1 big green pepper. I've got 1 really big red bell pepper that's cut into strips. A bunch of green onions, and you don't want to slice them too thin. You want them to still have a little bit of crisp texture when this cooks. So I've cut them about 1/4 inch thick. I've got a cup of cilantro leaves and 1 14-ounce can of diced tomatoes, not stewed tomatoes, just plain diced tomatoes. I'm going to take a pair of just ordinary salad servers, and I'm going to toss this just like a salad. I told you this was going to look like summer. It already does. And once this is tossed together, we're adding that spice blend. And as I was telling Andrew, the cameraman, the spice blend, the Jamaican curry seasoning, contains turmeric, and that will stain your clothes. So you want to be a little bit careful when you're dealing with curry powders that contain turmeric. Now it's time to add our shrimp. I've got 2 pounds of large or extra large. I just know this is going to turn out to be one of your favorite curry dishes. And now it's time for our coconut milk. And I have a can and a half of coconut milk. You can limit it to 1 can, but I kind of like my curry to be a little bit creamier, so I've got a can and a half. Yummy. All of this tossed in. And this is why I said you can prep all of your ingredients the night before, but don't mix them together. I'm going to let this sit so that the flavors marry for about 5 to 15 minutes. 30 minutes is still okay too, but if you let it go any longer than that, the acids are going to start to cook and toughen your shrimp, and you really don't want that. So we're just going to let this sit for about 5 or 10 minutes, then we're going to move over to the stovetop and get started. This is going to cook kind of fast and furious. You're going to see in a minute why we made our rice first. I'm going to spoon all of this curry mixture into the pan. I have about 4 tablespoons of vegetable oil in the bottom. I use 2 spoons to do this. It's kind of a cross between a stir fry and a saute. And I am going to cook this over medium-high heat for 5 to 6 minutes, and I'm going to stir it almost constantly. It's been about 2 minutes, and my shrimp are just starting. You can see they're firming up and showing signs of turning pink. That means we're about 1/3 of the way done. So I'm just going to keep stirring for another 2 minutes. This has been exactly 6 minutes. My shrimp are beautifully cooked. You can see how plump and juicy and tender they are, and they're pink. And look at that sauce, thick. We've got perfectly cooked shrimp and perfectly cooked sauce. Now it's time to turn off the heat. And I'm going to cover the pan and let it sit for just a minute or 2. Once again, just to give all of those wonderful flavors just a little bit of time to marry. And then it's time to eat. When it comes to really quick and super delicious weeknight meals, this is one that's on the top of my list. And if you're thinking that a shrimp dinner is going to break the budget, consider this. A 2-pound bag of shrimp costs less than $25, and this meal easily feeds 6 people. Think about that the next time you're considering a trip to the drive-thru. As they say in Jamaica, don't worry, be happy. For these and all of my recipes, just go to my website.
Trust me, that will definitely take the autumn chill out of your next family dinner. And coming up next, we go ghost hunting in Bellefonte. Welcome back to the center of it all. You know, Victorian Bellefonte has a rich history and a ton of old homes, and that means there's bound to be paranormal activity.
Bellefonte is known for its Victorian-style homes, and most of these homes were built between the mid-1800s and early 1900s during the Victorian era in America. If you're looking for Victorian homes in Bellefonte, you can find them here on Lynn Street. And on the corner of Lynn and Ridge, the Queen Bed and Breakfast has seen her share of paranormal activity. I sat down with owner Nancy Knoll, who had purchased the property over 40 years ago.
We were going to an auction up the street, and we parked out front, and there was a little sign on the front lawn that said for sale, no phone number, no nothing. So I kind of wandered around the house and peeked in the windows, and there was rubble everywhere, plaster missing from the walls. It was in total chaos, but all I could see was butlers in their finest and ladies in ball gowns.
Nancy moved into the house with her husband and son and started renovating the property into a bed and breakfast.
My son truly believes that, in fact, it did turn out to be haunted. He had many encounters with a ghost that he called Harry. one night I heard this terrible crash in the middle of the night, and I ran into his room, and he was underneath the covers with this huge bookcase on top of the bed and on top of him and the covers. And he spontaneously shouted, "Harry did it, Mommy, Harry did it." But as time went on, he came up with more and more stories about Harry, and his friends also began to believe about Harry, and they would talk to him on the Ouija board and ask him questions. And allegedly, he had come here to visit his sister, who was the live-in housekeeper here. And while he was here, he became ill and died. And so his spirit was never able to find its way home, because this wasn't where he belonged when he died.
The Queen is not the only house on Lynn Street that has been said to be haunted.
Just a few years ago, my son has long since moved on, and there's been no sign of Harry in the house. But a few years ago, I was across the street at my neighbor's, and she firmly believes that there is a female ghost in her house. She hears the taffeta on her dress rustle, and doors are left open, and the cats jump up with their hair sticking straight up when she's in the room. And one night when the two of us came back from a little road trip together and we knew no one was in the house, there were so many things disturbed that we actually called the police. A few days later, I was visiting her, and we're standing in the hallway chatting, and she's telling me about this male ghost that has suddenly moved in. And while we're standing in the foyer talking, someone standing just a few feet away belched very loudly, like only an old man could do, and we were both covered in goosebumps. And I thought, that's Harry. He just wants me to know he's here, because I hadn't seen or heard from him in this house for such a long time.
If you're up here on Lynn Street for All Hallows Eve, keep a lookout for Harry and his friends, because on Halloween, you never know where ghosts will be hiding.
Well, those are definitely some scary stories. And that's it for this edition of The Center of It All. For more WHVL content, visit our YouTube channel and like us on Facebook. Thanks for joining us, and have a great day.